And we're live. Hello, everybody. This is Carol, your host for Needing a Meeting, and everything went haywire. Just like stepped over into the twilight zone, and it was beautiful, but it's not. So anyway, we're here. Can everybody see me, hear me? 5x5.
5x5. Wow, is the lifeboat having a meeting right now too?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe sometimes he
That's
does.
what Seventh Carol's notification just went out. Seventh Son says.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, my all of a sudden when I tried to log in, it took me somewhere that I have no clue.
Well, he's in the chat, which
Like
is
I gave them all three of my possible account emails, and there could be no other possibility. They could not find me.
ah,
Anyway.
That's not good.
you're down on the farm. I can find you.
Oh, my Lanta.
And if I can find you, anybody can.
Before you logged in, could you hear me okay, Christy?
I couldn't hear anything. I can hear you now, but
Okay.
But before, no, I
Okay.
couldn't. So,
All
but
right.
you're good now. You're good now.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, and for those out there in the chat, maybe just for all peace of mind, maybe a 5x5 if you can hear me and see me. I'm on the lifeboats on my phone, and I'm here on iPad. Well, thank you, son. That's amazing. Hi, Megan.
Oh, Megan.
See you. Can you hear me okay? 5x5. Thank you. Perfect. All right. We're good to go.
That's awesome.
Somehow.
Awesome. Good.
All right. Let's roll.
Let's roll.
All right. So I will be reading Healthy Boundaries Part 2 out of the Friends and Family Smart Recovery. And this is about protecting your boundaries. So what are your choices if you have identified and communicated a boundary with your loved one and you are ignored? We are each responsible for protecting our own boundaries. In other words, if asking nicely isn't getting the result you wanted, you have a choice to make. Back off and choose to live with their behavior, or move on to the next phase of boundary work, boundary protection. Your choice, no matter what it is, influences the likelihood of your loved one choosing to respect your boundaries or not. What message do you send to your loved one when you communicate a boundary and protect it when it is crossed? What message do you send to your loved one when you communicate a boundary and then fail to protect it when it is crossed? If you do choose to protect your boundaries, how can you do this in an effective and respectful way? The section on Healthy Boundaries, Part 2, is a guide to finding your own answers to these questions. Boundaries require protection to be effective. In a perfect world, everyone communicates their boundaries calmly and clearly, and those around them respect their request for appropriate behavior, and they all live happily ever after. Right?
Love that. We want that one.
Wow,
Right?
what were we thinking?
Right?
It was that easy. What were we thinking?
Formula for communicating a boundary request. Inform. When you do whatever the behavior is, I feel however you feel. Request. Can I ask you to stop or change this behavior? Since we don't live in a perfect world, others sometimes do choose to disregard our boundary request, and the inappropriate behavior continues. If this happens, it may be beneficial to clearly and calmly restate a boundary request several times over a period of days or weeks. Reminder: boundaries communicated to a loved one who is intoxicated may not be heard or remembered. If a boundary is continually ignored, even after repeated requests, then we have a responsibility to ourselves to protect the boundary, not just one time, but every time from now on. Remember, actions speak louder than words. Consistency of our actions is the best way to protect a boundary.
Right on.
Formula for communicating a planned protective action if a boundary request continues to be ignored. So we know the first part, it's the same as before. When you do whatever I feel, however, can I ask you to stop or change?
Can I
And then
interrupt on that one?
yeah.
I've had people tell me that in counseling sessions that that's how you do it, but it sounds you can't do it that way and not sound like a robot almost.
It sounds
Right.
easier than it is.
Well,
Well,
no, I mean when you're presenting it in that exact way, how
yeah.
do you put that into your own voice,
So, well, let me read this other thing and then I'll say it to you in a way how I would say it.
Okay.
So then the next part is if you are not willing to stop or change this behavior, I will need to whatever. So, let's see what I don't want to be too picky on you. Let's see what's something that I so when you I'm trying to think. When you get belligerent because you've been drinking, I feel scared. Can I ask you to please not drink in my presence? And then if they continue to do that, then me, how I would say this is, okay, bottom line is, because that's my thing, I bottom line everything. Bottom line is, if you are not willing to stop drinking in my presence, I will not come over to visit you anymore. And I think it's more the tone, um, but I do think it's important to tell them what they're doing, how it makes you feel, because they need to be able to acknowledge or understand what they're doing, at least be told. You
Mm-hmm.
need to validate your feeling and you need to, kind of do this. I think that inform and request, I don't think usually it stops there. I think you really have to kind of, if you're not, bottom line is if you don't knock this off, I'm not coming back over, and I think that's it. But I do think that you have to in some way let them know what they're doing and how you feel about it and what you expect them to do,
And
because
give them a consequence for not respecting it.
yeah, well, or even just, can I ask you to stop doing that? I mean, I think you can be gentle the first time around.
Sure.
And if somebody is, like with me,
Hi, Charlie.
I would
Good
be
to
like,
see you.
did I would be like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that was your boundary. Absolutely. But if it
Okay.
would, there's been a
Much
lot of
better,
times.
Steve-O. Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. There's been a lot of times where I don't even do this first part and I just skip to, hey, look, bottom line is either you do this or I'm going to do this. And it's and I don't look at it as choosing between me or a behavior. It's you can do A or you can do B, but you're not going to be my friend married to me, my business partner, whatever, if you continue to do A. Because, you know what I'm saying? Then you're kind of leaving it back in their court. So, like, for
Right.
example, something that Mike and I had a conversation about was kids. I can't have kids. He really wanted kids. We were close to 40. I was like, look, if you want to have kids, you can divorce me and go marry somebody else and have a bunch of kids, or you can stay married to me and accept the fact that we're not going to have any more children and we have the potential to have 30 grandbabies. I don't care which you choose, but you don't get to have babies with me. And, and then he's like, well, 30 grandkids would be kind of cool. And so I'm like, awesome, right on. So that's kind of how I do it is I'm just like, you can do this, but I'm not going to be here if you do that. Like, you get to pick what you do. And I think when you phrase it that way, you're not sounding robotic.
You did.
And you're not saying you have to either to me or this, you're saying you can keep doing this, but I won't be here for it. And I think sometimes that's a pretty powerful thing, because that's a very powerful way to stand, in your own boundary and really make somebody know that you're serious. Now, it might not always work.
Well, and even though you say it the way you say it, they still may hear it as it's me or the booze, or yeah,
Uh-huh.
they
Yeah.
still may hear it that way.
Right. And then at that point, that's on them, because they're hearing it through their own lens.
Yeah.
And it's not what you said, it's how they're interpreting it. And,
Right.
And it also makes it more real to them. Like, wow, she's serious. I've got to really either be her friend or not drink around her.
Right. And, and I think for me, most people in general, unless they're just way off the rails, do respect boundaries. They understand them. Now, to be fair, I've not really had to deal with an extreme situation, but I like that they tell you, hey, you might have to do this more than once. Here's an example. We'll see if this makes more sense. When you raise your voice, it hurts me and it scares the children. I've asked you several times over the last few weeks to speak in a normal volume when you talk to me or the kids, but nothing has changed. From now on, when you raise your voice, the kids and I will go to grandma's for the evening.
Okay.
So, kind of
Where's the consequence?
The consequence is they go to grandma's for the evening.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I thought you said, what's the consequence?
No.
Okay. Keeping it positive. In really...
My laptop is about to die battery-wise. I need to go get my little charger thing. I don't have it with me. So carry on. I'll be right back.
Okay. Keeping it positive. In really significant boundary conversations, when you are confronting someone about a serious problem, I'm concerned your drinking is out of control. It can be helpful to set the tone for the conversation by starting off with positive statements that affirm and validate how important your relationship with the other person is. John, I want you to know the reason I'm bringing this up is because I love you and I am committed to our relationship. I love and value so many things about you. In fact, that is why I have to talk to you about this. Protective action. When first learning about boundaries, family and friends sometimes confuse the actions needed to protect a boundary with making a choice to punish the loved one for their action. It may be helpful to recall that GYLOS does not recommend punishment. Points.
Did you already say what GYLOS is?
No, I think,
okay.
Is it up here? I know it's in here somewhere. Get your loved one sober.
GYLOS. That's weird. That sounds like an alien name.
It does. It might be helpful to recall that get your loved one sober does not recommend punishment and points out that punishments often backfire. Instead, they suggest a simple and powerful action for protecting your boundary. Disengage, remove yourself from the situation. In many cases, some variation of disengage is sufficient to communicate the seriousness of your boundary request. The first time you find yourself communicating your plan to take protective action, you may not have had time to decide what you're going to do. In that case, you may just state calmly, matter-of-factly, if you're not willing to do this, I'll need to make some decisions about what I'm going to do. And you know what? I think that's a very powerful statement, because you're not threatening anything, and that person's mind is going to just, go. It may not be a negative thing with you guys going to grandma's. As long as you're not walking through the woods with a little Red Riding Hood on, right?
Oh, jeez.
Okay, planning a boundary request. Using the boundary request formula, inform, request, inform, plan a boundary request for each of the following scenarios. And then it's just got a few things. So we'll just read one. I wish my wife would not drink so much when I'm at work. I know she sometimes drinks until she's passed out. I'm scared that she cannot wake up when the baby is crying, or that my older child will not be able to wake her and will think that she is dead. I wish she would not drink with the kids around. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, if you're breastfeeding, you really shouldn't be doing that. I mean,
yeah, or
I mean, you're just making a little alcoholic right there.
yeah, that's an intense one. There's some other ones. Let's see. When my loved one is actively engaged with his addiction, he often fails to show up for things we have planned and sometimes disappears for hours or days at a time. In response, I feel frustrated and hurt at his disrespectful behaviors. Um, so there's a couple more. I'll put this in the Facebook group so everybody can look over it, maybe journal and think on it. Role of boundaries in healthy relationships. Healthy relationships happen when we actively and consistently respect each other's rights and preferences. They are based on equality and mutual respect. They are based on healthy boundaries. All relationships have boundaries, and when they are respected, the need for continual reminders about those boundaries is rarely necessary. But but when problems arise, such as addiction and behaviors that come with it, it becomes necessary to make the boundaries clear. It becomes necessary to let the other person know that their behavior is disrespectful. Some examples of behavior that you may find unacceptable. Loved one, these are all loved ones. Okay, loved one borrowing money he cannot or does not pay back, expecting financial support from you while she spends her money on the addiction, lying in any way to cover up the truth of his activities, taking long absences, or putting lives at risk by drinking and driving. My my boundaries cannot make you do anything. As much as we want our loved one to stop the behaviors related to the addiction, it is important to understand that the purpose of boundaries is not to punish the person or manipulate them into changing.
Yeah,
The truth, I like that. The
I do
truth
too.
is that one person's boundary cannot make another person change. It
Right.
may give them a good reason to choose to change, but they retain their own power of choice.
Yeah.
We may not like it if they choose not to change, but we would do well to accept that they have a right to choose for themselves. And I think that's really powerful because when you realize someone is making a conscious choice, it hits very differently than if it's just, you protect.
Emotionally based. Yeah.
Yeah, or enabling or something like that. When you see it as this person is choosing to continue to do this, I think it in some way might empower people a little bit to make their own changes.
One thing that you said in the beginning, I can't remember the exact phraseology, but it's important to have it come from a place of love
Hmm.
rather than an ultimatum.
Yeah. Yeah. Ultimatums very seldom work,
Mm-hmm.
especially if somebody's stubborn or spiteful. It's really
Yeah.
not work, you know. Um, Our power of choice includes our ability to let others know how their behaviors are impacting us and to offer them a chance to stop the damage to our relationship before it is too late, before things get to a point where we have to build a wall instead of a boundary. We do this by taking responsibility for calmly, clearly, and consistently communicating our boundaries. Walls are for keeping people out. Hopefully, with effective, healthy boundaries, you won't find yourself needing walls to keep your loved one out of your life. Reminder: protecting your boundaries is not a way to punish others or manipulate them into complying with your wishes. It is not a sign of disrespect to others' needs. It is a sign of respect to yourself and for the relationship. Boundaries, an antidote for enabling. Disable the enabling. As as discussed in section 10, fixing, protecting, and nagging are not helpful and often have the effect of enabling or allowing the addiction to continue. If the communication in our relationship with our loved one has deteriorated to the point where we are frequently nagging, pleading, and arguing, we may want to choose a different method of communicating, especially since these methods have been shown to contribute to an environment that enables the addiction. It is not easy to change communication styles, but it can be done. We can learn to communicate in a different way. Positive communication, assertive communication, and boundaries are effective tools we can use to communicate honestly and clearly. They are tools we can use instead of nagging, pleading, and arguing to let others in our lives know what behaviors are acceptable and which are not acceptable to us. Rather than the drama of nagging, pleading, and threatening, we can choose the tools to show our loved one clearly, calmly, and consistently that his behavior is not acceptable, and we leave it up to him, and that is all in big bold letters, to decide what, if anything, he wants to do about it. In other words, by communicating our boundaries, we meet our responsibility for disabling the enabling and allow our loved one to become fully responsible for the problem. Hurt versus harm. Enabling behaviors and addiction have something in common. Both are quick fix, short term solutions. They have the desired effect, minimizing pain or discomfort, but only in the short term, and they have negative long term consequences. Yes, there is often some discomfort, hurt, involved in protecting boundaries that your loved one is ignoring. Whatever action you have chosen to take in order to protect your boundary, usually disengaging in some way, can be painful to your loved one. It may also be painful for you. However, the action you take to protect your boundaries, such as uncomfortable as it feels in the moment, is minor compared to the lasting harm that is caused by addiction. Like someone with addiction, you have a choice. Continue on the path of short term gratification or take the more difficult but rewarding path to long term recovery. The chief cause of failure and unhappiness is trading what you want most for what you want right now. And that's a quote by Zig Ziglar.
Hmm.
5 steps to establish healthy boundaries. In order to establish healthy boundaries between yourself and others, one, identify the symptoms of your boundaries currently being or having been violated or ignored. Take responsibility for your own upsets. Identify the irrational or unhealthy thinking and beliefs which are fueling any high drama, anger, frustration, anxiety, sadness you are experiencing over the behaviors. Step 3, identify new, more rational, healthy thinking and beliefs. Rational, healthy thinking will lead to less anger and frustration in your life and put you into a better communicate your boundaries calmly, clearly, and consistently. Identify any new skills you want to work on in order to sustain healthy boundaries between you or your loved one. The key word here is sustain. Like fences, personal boundaries require maintenance. Implement healthy boundary building beliefs and behaviors in your life. Healthy boundary building behaviors, managing the need for approval, managing fear of rejection, improving assertive communication skills, developing self control, and setting goals. Healthy boundary building beliefs. I have the right to ask for what I want. I have the right, these are all I have the right to have my needs met and wants respected by others, to be treated with dignity and respect, to be happy, to express all of my feelings, positive or negative, to follow my own values and standards. You have a right not to be responsible for my loved one's behavior, actions, feelings, or problems.
Yeah.
Right? To not be oh no, I read that one. To expect honesty from others, not to give excuses or reasons for my behavior, make decisions based on my feelings, be in a non abusive environment, be
Yeah.
safe in my own home.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Tips for setting boundaries. Remember why we make boundary requests. Boundary requests are an effective way to say, this is important to me, please pay attention. Boundary requests are not a way to punish your loved one for unwanted behavior. Start small. Build up your boundary skills by starting with small requests delivered to others, not your loved one, to gain experience and confidence. Delivery. Boundaries are best delivered using positive and assertive, not aggressive communication. Timing. Boundary requests benefit from being planned ahead of time. They are best shared with your loved one when you are feeling calm and clear and when your loved one is sober. The three C's of boundary communication: be calm, be clear, be consistent. Prepare to be challenged.
I wonder, like, if you're, I've never had to deal with a relationship where I had to do anything like that. I just went the win in Rome route,
Uh huh. Uh-huh.
and I wonder how effective that is in getting someone to examine their behavior. You
I
know,
think it I think it depends on how healthy of a relationship you're in. If you're in a healthy relationship, I think the person will stop and step back and go, okay, I didn't realize that." I think if you're in an unhealthy relationship, I think you have so many things to address that I do think, like the book says, you're going to have to communicate it a lot.
hmm
Um, when I was married to my ex, those boundaries were just plowed over constantly.
yeah,
And but that was so unhealthy that it was never going to work. I was
yeah,
never going to be heard.
yeah,
Um, and so then once I got out of that relationship in a way and wasn't in the house, in the middle of it, in the drama of it,
yeah.
then at that point I was able to say, yeah, no, you know what? I don't have to pick up the phone when you call. Um,
Okay,
because when I was there and the kids were there and we were living in the house, you don't really know why that person's calling. So I think if you're in the middle of it, I think it's probably a little bit more difficult. But even if you have someone that's toxic that you've separated yourself from, I think you have a much more, I think the consequence is bigger, is more important than setting the boundary. Does that make sense? It's like you have to make what you're going to do big enough to get their attention. Because let's say that, okay, if you don't stop drinking, I'm going to pour all of your alcohol down the drain. Well, they can go to any number of liquor stores or any number of bars and get more. That's not really a consequence. But if you say, if you don't stop drinking, I'm going to really have to take a look at things and evaluate where I want to go from here. And the children and I will be at my parents' house until the time comes that I have decided what I'm going to do. That's different. You see what I'm saying? Because you're
yeah,
removing yourself and you're
Well,
getting that distance. Because I
yeah,
think distance is the key. It's really hard to do something. I have found for me personally, when I'm in the middle of it, I really have to step back. And that
yeah.
maybe goes back to that DB training where, DBT training, where when you're in your emotional mind, you're not really making good decisions. And for this, you almost kind of don't even really, you need to be in the more logical side of your wise mind, but get that distance. And I think really that's the only way change can happen is to step back and get some clarity. For me, that's what I found. Now, I don't know that that's the case with everybody, but,
Right.
you know,
And every relationship's unique.
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
know, I
Equal parts
never,
healthy and unhealthy.
yeah.
I very rarely had to set up boundaries, and when I did, they were always respected. So
Mhm,
this is kind of foreign to me in a way.
mhm, mhm. Well, and I think too, sometimes there's a difference between men and women setting boundaries. I think, in my life, I've noticed the men that I'm around have a really good, it's not hard for them to set a boundary. But myself and some other women that I know personally kind of have a hard time sometimes doing that. And I don't know why that is.
And
I
and what and boundaries are double-sided. There's two sides to a boundary. And if
Mhm.
you set one, you're obligated to keep it too. So that helps you maintain
Mhm.
your sobriety or your uh,
Sanity.
it helps you keep your side of the bargain.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, because if I set a boundary with somebody, now I'm obligated to keep my side of it, which is I'm not going to drink.
Right. Well, and if you don't keep your side, because not everybody might be strong enough at the beginning to keep their side,
Yeah.
what you're doing is you're teaching the other person that, what you say isn't important to you, or they can treat you that way. What I always say is boundaries teach other people how to treat us. And that's how we, and you have to love yourself enough to set a firm boundary. And when you're in an unhealthy place, it's hard to be healthy. It's hard to see healthy things. That's why therapists and friends in places like this, and everything else is good, because you get a different perspective. And especially if you're the one who's being manipulated, can be
Yeah.
really hard for you to see that you are being manipulated, because nobody wants to believe that a spouse or a parent or a sibling or a best friend could do that to them.
Right.
I mean, that hurts your soul. Like,
Yeah.
as someone who was really manipulated, when you look back at it, you're like, why did I do that? Like, you start kind of beating yourself up. Like, how could I be so stupid? Well, no, you weren't stupid. You just were in a really unhealthy place.
Yeah. And it can happen to anyone, best of us.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So prepare to be challenged. Your loved one may verbally challenge your boundary, claiming it is unfair or harsh. Your boundaries represent your personal preferences. You have a right to hold and express personal preferences, and you are not obligated to defend their merits. Remember that boundaries are clear communication about what you want and what you intend to do to protect the boundary if not honored. Your loved one has a choice to honor your request or not. Plan to protect the boundary. Your loved one may forget your boundary request or may not take it seriously. Know that this is relatively common, and be prepared to follow through on your plan to protect your boundary as needed every single time. Lead by example. Model the kind of behavior you expect. If you don't want your son or daughter to take drugs at home, don't use drugs or alcohol yourself. If you don't want your
Right.
spouse to drink, don't
Right.
drink.
Right. That's
So I was,
kind of
so
where I was going with that two-sided boundary thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
as you were saying that, I was thinking, man, this takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you've just been used to a certain status quo that's
Yeah.
not that.
And it can be very uncomfortable to step into that,
Yeah.
I mean, to trust yourself enough to step into it.
Right.
Um, Respect is a two-way street. Your loved one has boundaries too. Honoring your loved one's boundaries sets the tone in the relationship and increases the likelihood that your loved one will respect your boundary request. I got to turn the fireplace up a little bit. It is really cold here. Hold on.
It warmed up over here. We got sunshine and 60 degrees and
Nice.
yeah.
It snowed here yesterday.
Wow. How much snow did you get?
Oh, like an inch, but it melted off right away because the ground's not frozen yet.
You
Yeah.
know, last year we only got like a couple inches of snow on Christmas Day. That was it.
Hmm.
And growing up in Colorado, where we got lots of snow, it was the first few years we didn't get snow. I was like, yay, no snow. Now I'm like, please, please send your snow. I want snow. I want to be snowed in. Because I don't like not having snow, I have found. Um, but what are your guys' experiences with boundaries, either being set on you or and well, let's talk about that. Has someone set a boundary on you, and how did you respond to that? Did you take it straight away, or did you, were you angry about it and not listen to it?
I was trying to think, probably the only person that I would have had to do that with was either a friend that I clearly no longer have, or with my mom. And I don't think she put me in that position. I think I had to put myself in that position,
Right, right.
you know?
If it's important to you to stay sober, you have to enclose yourself in the boundary and then say, here it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when you guys were, in the life, did anybody try this with you? Try putting boundaries? No?
No.
No, I didn't have, my mom and dad were traveling. And
Mhm.
so it's not like I would have been able to see them a lot anyway.
Oh, okay.
So the only people that I was hanging out with was people doing the same thing I was doing.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
I didn't really have, it seems almost like deliberate that I put myself in the company of people who would not challenge me.
Oh,
Well, that's not bad.
Well,
That's
it is
not
if you're
a bad thing.
drinking and using, and the people around you are drinking and using and
Well,
offering
yeah, but I
drinks
mean,
and drugs and
yeah, sure. But if you want sobriety and you want to stay clean and you want those healthy relationships, it's not a bad thing.
I did the thing that they say doesn't work in AA. I did they call it a geographic.
Yeah.
I was not doing that with the intention. I did not change my location with the intention of getting clean and sober. It just kind of worked out that way.
what's a geographic? I don't know what that means.
It means that you run away from your current set of sphere of influence. You move, in other words,
Oh.
try to get sober.
Oh,
And
wow.
they say that rarely works. And but in my case, I did that. I changed my location, and I ended up getting sober as a result.
Right.
As
Jimmy
opposed,
Buffett calls it changes in attitude or changes in latitude or something like that.
yeah. So I mean, a lot of this, I went about it so completely different than the usual way it goes. As far as having relationships that are good and losing them. I was 21 years between marriages.
Oh, okay.
And I had one serious relationship in all of that time. The rest of them, I would date somebody briefly and figure out, no, went through a lot of no.
I mean, at least you had the nose.
Right, right.
And having my I was watching, I forget her name. She does YouTube videos, and she's a psychologist or psychiatrist. She's a doctor. She has a doctorate in psychology, in other words. And her specialty is narcissism and helping people break free of narcissistic abuse.
Right.
Does a lot, like her videos are exclusively that content.
Right.
And I watched one of her videos where she described a covert narcissist.
Yeah.
And she described my ex-husband and my first marriage to a T. Like, it was like watching the movie of my life. It really was. And so, I was with him for a total of 5 years. We were married for the last year and a couple of months of it. And it was so bad that I was like, I would rather be single than go through that again.
Yeah.
And so that's where I spent a lot of my years, is single. Not even in a significant relationship. I was like very, very, very single. And so I didn't get a chance to really exercise these things that you do in a relationship. Hi, Annie.
Hi, Annie. Hi. And
Right.
hi, Charlie. If you're still here, I just seen you popped in.
So, yeah, I'm not going to have a lot of the same experience base as a lot of people, you know.
Right. Well, but
I
it worked for
That's
you.
why I was in a cult, it kind of let me skate by a lot of this as well as, keeping me single.
Dr. Ramani.
Yes, I am. I am talking about Dr. Ramani. Yeah.
Look at you, Annie, being on the ball.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Nice. So then,
Yeah.
Steve, when you were drinking, your wife didn't try to put any boundaries in place or anything like that?
Ye- I really don't remember. I don't know if it's because I was drunk or,
Mm-hmm.
or what, but I can't. Maybe that's a good question to ask her on Sunday,
Okay.
Yeah.
because I I know that the one boundary was if I did it, she got mad.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Would did it ever become a thing where she was she would tell you ahead of time, yeah, you can do this, but if you do, it's going to be this. Did she ever do anything like that at all?
No, I think she was more resigned to the fact that, I mean, I actually told her at one point, this is who I am and you need to get used to it. And uh,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I know that's kind of harsh, but when you want to use, you don't mind being harsh.
What
Um,
was your response to that?
she separated herself from me and emotionally, and go into another room or whatever,
Okay.
and just dealt with it. And I it's been so long since I thought about something like that because it hasn't been an issue. But
Right.
now having to think about it, I don't I really don't remember.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. If you were drinking a lot, I mean, I can understand how you wouldn't remember. Like,
Every day.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, I can understand that. So we'll have to ask that. I'm interested in in that. Like
Yeah, I am too. I wish we'd have somebody come in that would be able to speak on that. I feel a little bit anyway, but
And
Anik,
she will be bluntly honest. She'll tell you. I mean, she might tell me something that's a surprise to me.
well, I mean, the good thing is you're on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's most important, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's been the best 14 years of our marriage. And when I got really sick with my heart, um we haven't spoken in ill word to each other.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's good.
Yeah, makes sense. Anik, and anybody new to needing a meeting, what we've been doing for the last maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks
Yeah,
is
yeah.
I've been reading from a handbook called Smart Recovery, and it's kind of more of a scientific approach as opposed to just show up at an AA meeting and you're going to stay sober kind of thing. They actually have some science-based technique things that you engage in. And Christy has been the last couple of days has been reading from the Friends and Family Smart Handbook. It's kind of like Smart's version of Al-Anon.
And they both have very good tools. And I will say, Carol and I were discussing this, how this brings a different perspective to it. So it kind of makes you see your addiction in a different way that you might not have thought about before. And I think that's really interesting.
I was just there 2 minutes ago.
Steve's like, but I think that's how you, excuse me, suck in a bunch of air. I think that's how you really continue to heal and have things to journal about, is when you do see that other perspective.
Forgot to journal this morning. Oops.
Oh, shame on you. You are banished, Steve. No.
I got to get my journaling game back on. I've been doing it like every day, every other day, every 2 days. And okay, Seventh Son.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, that does make sense.
Yeah.
I had a nice long talk with Steve, and he was very understanding and a really cool guy to talk to.
Right on.
Good. I know he was missing you. What, yesterday?
Yeah.
No, I talked to him last night.
Was he like, don't ever leave me hanging?
That's right. That's pretty much what it was.
Seventh, we love you. We're so glad you're here.
Yeah,
Bring more of your kind. Bring more of your kind.
Bring it in, dude. It's a test. It's an estrogen fest over here.
I mean, if y'all ever need a woman's point of view, we got you.
we got a band name, the Steves and the Chick Flicks.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
At one point, we had 5 Steves in here, and the rest were all ladies.
And my best friend of 42 years is Steve. So
nice. Well, and I think, didn't he hop on yesterday for a minute?
Yeah, that was a couple days ago.
Okay. Yeah.
Or he might have been yesterday.
Yeah, he did show up yesterday briefly.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was pretty cool. Yeah.
And if anyone would like to, that link that I just put up is a link to be able to come on and be on the screen with us, to be able to do a live conversation. You're welcome to do that if you're comfortable or even uncomfortable and would like to do that.
There he is.
There he is.
That's the way we say hello.
Been burning.
That's the way we say hello and goodbye. If we're like cutting a phone conversation off, we'll say, all right, hey, and that's it. We hang up. And that's the way we say hello too. So that's
right on, Annie. Oh, that's so good. That is so good. It's one of the best things you can do for yourself.
Yes.
It really, really is. And one of the hardest things you can do for yourself.
I'm going to hop off for a minute. I got a phone call I've got to take. So if I'm back, great. If not.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how much of the conversation you had caught before, but I kind of skirted a lot of this by going from being a drinker and a drug user, to being a cult member.
Yeah.
Or just even a member of a kind of an extremist, an extreme, or a religion kind of more on the extreme side, leading up to the cult. And so I skirted a lot of this. I kind of stunted my growth, I guess you'd say, as a human being. And that's why I started back up in recovery, because I was feeling how stuck I was.
And the cult that you were in is pretty infamous. Or the offshoot of that cult, if I understand things correctly.
Well, this cult would not be a publicly known cult.
Okay.
It was a small group unto itself. It was its own thing that was started by a group of college students. But it's not an unusual religious aspect to it. It's just the cult itself would not be widely known.
Right. I thought that uh the Jim Jones thing was part of your.
No, that was you're thinking about Heaven's Gate, you mean?
Yes, Heaven's Gate.
I wasn't in Heaven's Gate. I was in Rancho Santa Fe the night that they were
They okay, right. All right, that's what it was. Okay.
when they determined that it took like it was about a 3-day affair for those 39 people to end up in that house in Rancho Santa Fe not alive. And which means that I was there on a Tuesday night in Rancho Santa Fe at a person's house it was a prayer group that I used to go to, and so I was there in that neighborhood in Rancho Santa Fe the night that they were doing that they were unaliving themselves, and you don't just show up in Rancho Santa Fe randomly, because
No.
there's nothing there but wealthy people's houses. I don't even think that there's any. I don't think there's a poor spot in town, or even much of a middle class spot in that part of the world.
Well, that would be Anik, that would be most welcome as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Right on. Love it, love it.
But
But
I also cherish being the big brother of the group too.
so, in other words, going back to the cult that I was just getting a cult member's perspective that got out before it got to that point.
Right, right.
Years before the group did that in Rancho Santa Fe.
Was there a build up to where you decided it was time to get out, or was it one?
No, it was a build up. I was actually ready to go much sooner than I actually did. I joined in 1999, and by 2001, I was over it. I wanted out, and so
Steve Molesky, Anik. You've seen me on the boat very many times. Moleski.
what was I saying?
So you were ready. You were done by 2001.
Yeah, and so I was looking for the right out, and when I thought I had found it, um, the pastor ex-nayed it, and of course he's very good. He's a very good spin doctor, and he's good at making you feel like, you know, you're coming around to what he wants, but it's your idea to do it. He's a very, very intelligent man. Don't ever discount that. Don't ever count him as anything but very cunning and very masterfully intelligent,
Nope, that's me, Anik.
and okay. All righty. All right.
All
See you
right, Steve.
if I get to get there. With the daylight changing, I usually don't get out of the bar until sometime after 8. Usually it's more like about 8:30 or 9, depending on how things go.
And how soon you feel like getting started?
That too. Sometimes I have to build up my my muster ability. I have to
Going
build
to pregame warm up and
yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's it all seems like fun to have all those animals, but you just don't realize how much work they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's one I need to go check on. She's been kind of slower than normal, and so I've been just kind of keeping an eye on her.
Is
And
that one of the calves?
no, one of the goats, one of my girl goats.
Oh,
So I
Well,
I think
I wanted to join in on you since we had red hats. This is my Bubba Gump Shrimp Factory
nice.
hat.
I've been to a Bubba Gump Shrimp Company place in San Francisco.
Have you?
Their bread pudding is amazing.
Oh,
So good.
talk about
So good.
talk about carbs though.
Yeah, for real.
I gotta stay under 80 a day, which isn't that hard. But if I have one thing with carbs, I'm done for the rest of the day.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. Thanks, Seventh Son. Appreciate that very
I'll be
much.
running to get watch time. Okay, yeah, cool. So, well, do you feel like we've had a meeting, or is Christy coming back? Do you feel?
I don't know. We do a thing in the chat where if somebody in the chat needs a meeting and there's something we need to have a meeting with you about, put a 2 in the chat. Need to talk, need to dump. And number 3, if you're good. In other words, thinking of a heart. And so a 2 if you need a meeting, and a 3 if you're good, if you feel like we've had a meeting. And that's kind of one of the things we do here. This I don't. It's in the description, but I haven't said it in a while. The premise of this needing a meeting is based on the show Mom. If you've ever watched it, in the later seasons when they got more recovery under their belts,
Yeah,
one of the ladies would be spinning out and catch themselves and say, I need a meeting. And whoever was there would just stop and have a meeting with them right then and there. And then
yeah,
another one would be, or somebody would see somebody spinning out and say, do you need a meeting? And they'd go, yes. And they'd stop and they would have an impromptu meeting right then and there. I'd like to, I have had some impromptu meetings a few times just because I needed a meeting.
right. I'm also familiar with the concept.
And so that's always an option. If somebody contacts me and says I need a meeting, I'll make it happen. I'll make it work.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
but other than that, 4:40 Central Time, we have a meeting, and if somebody's here that has something that's pressing on them that they need to talk about, we're always here for that. Always, always, always.
yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, believe me, I get it. I do. Life has a way of
Getting
getting.
in the way.
So I'm glad you're here. Very glad you're here. Welcome.
She's very, very has a very strong presence on the boat.
Right on. And I haven't been able to be on the boat much because um, right after this, I have to get in the barn and tend to my animals, and I spend an hour minimum in the barn, and I have to do it kind of with the sun going down. So as soon as I close up this meeting, I'm getting ready for chores. And
Well,
then I don't usually get out of the barn until after the boat has already sailed
yeah,
into the sunset. And I'm not much of a morning person, so I don't always get to catch it in the morning. But if I'm up, I catch it.
yeah. Well, I usually have my alarm set at 9 o'clock for meds, but
Right
other,
on.
my INR, you know what INR blood level is?
No.
Oh, it's how viscous or non-viscous your red platelets are.
Okay.
And mine have been extremely low, which means they've been extremely thick. So I've been having to take Lovenox shots in my stomach. It's a tiny needle, and it does it. I've had mosquito bites that hurt worse.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Well, you would love my place then. I've got 30 goats. I've got one cooney pig, a small donkey, Well, I did have 4 dogs. Now I have 10 because my girl dog just had 6 puppies.
Yes.
I have 2 cats.
All right. How many of the puppies are spoken for?
Oh, I haven't put them up on any farm sites yet.
Oh.
So, none yet. I kind of want to, before I do that, kind of figure out if there's one of them that is going to be mine.
Right.
I don't want somebody to lay claim to one that I fall in love with, if any of them are gonna, but it would only be one. But they're being raised up to be livestock guardians. And we also have chickens and guineas, and I have 6 little baby chickies right there in the back room right now because they were hatched to young hens that are clueless moms. And it's disappointing because all of my hens have been wonderful mothers until now.
Until now. Thank you, Anik. That's nice of you to say. Apparently, a lot of people know my story that more than I thought.
It really is unique. It really, really is quite remarkable. I'm kind of in awe that you're able to do it like you are, Steve. Be here and be present and
It helps me. That's why I need a meeting.
right on. Yeah. Yeah, ultimately that's what it kind of comes down to, doesn't it?
Yeah, yesterday, I was having a little pity party, but we got through it.
Yeah. I'm glad. And you're doing better now?
Yeah.
Good.
I'm a little nervous about my knee surgery coming up, and I better not tell you because I haven't even told Steve yet. Not your Steve, my Steve.
Okay.
Anik.
Anik. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Anik. All right, now we know.
So anyway, if you guys, like I said, if anybody needs a meeting, put a 2 in the chat, and we'll have a meeting over whatever's on your mind, whatever's on your heart, and also if you feel like we've had a meeting, good, Anik, is that okay? Good.
Yep.
If you feel like we've had a meeting, put a 3 in the chat, a 2 if you need a meeting.
I don't know how to get into the chat on my laptop, so I have to do chat on my phone and this live. This is so cool.
It really is. Good deal.
Good deal.
Yeah. They just, on the plan that I have, it was to where I could let 8 people in to the chat, to the live part here. But now they upped it to 10 people. So I can get as many as 10 people in here.
And I know you have at least that many between me and Christy and Candy and whomever else. I know that there's 4 there, and then I know there's more than 6 in the chat.
Well, I mean, at one time.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. We could get to 10 if we set up some boundaries.
Yeah, it's we're going to be on a learn as you go curve here. But yeah, I was happy to see that they upped it. Maybe they heard me say they're stingy with how many people they'll let in the chat. Maybe they heard me. You never know.
Yeah, just maybe put the link up one more time, and maybe Anik can come on and
just to say hi.
Yeah. Or I don't know if Steve's still watching, but
no, he had to go take his son.
No, my so we had 3 Steves, and yours isn't even there.
He's sleeping. He has to work tonight.
Oh gosh, good for him. I mean, I so respect him for what he does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's a dear heart.
I know he is.
Mm-hmm.
I know he is.
Yeah.
I mean, he is the type of people that I like to surround myself with.
Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of friends, but I have a couple. I have. I'm
Yeah.
camera shy. I'm afraid.
No
All
worries.
right.
You know, one of these times, if you want to just do it afraid, do it afraid. You know,
Maybe
right,
one day. All
right
right.
on, Nick. I my very first time going live, it was scary. I was shaking, but I was also very emotional. I had been thinking about somebody that when I was in the cult, I should have reached out to, because I could smell booze on her from. She'd usually be sitting right in front of me, and I kept wanting to reach out to her, and I never did, and she ended up dying, and it had haunted me for a very long time, and I'm not sure I had ever really talked about it with anyone. You know, I just got so used to carrying all my burdens myself, you know, and not really letting anyone else in on them. And yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So that was my very first time. So, you know, there may come a time when when you got something so much on your mind that it's bigger than your fear, is what I'm trying to say there.
right. Right. And um, I've been in rehab, and I've been in meetings in my church where we've lost people. Some to violence, some to gunshots, some to using, some to accidental overdose. To I know one guy that committed suicide by cop.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh. I think that is such an unfair thing to do to a cop.
Oh, it's horrid.
I just
Oh, it's horrid. And his dad was a missionary to Peru,
hmm. Yeah. Wow.
and his name was, guess what?
Steve. I'm not laughing, but I am laughing.
No, no, it's that was 14 years ago, 13 years ago.
When we end a meeting, Anik, we like to have a moment of silence for the person who's out there in their addiction still suffering, and those who are struggling in recovery, because we know that's real. And also for those we've loved and lost. And then we follow that with a serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity
God grant me the
to
serenity
accept the things I cannot change,
to accept the things I cannot change,
courage to change the things I can,
courage to change the things I can,
and wisdom to know the difference.
and the wisdom to know the difference.
Amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you so
Well,
much for being here. I appreciate you very, very good and very much. Sounds
I'm glad, because I feel like, I know roosters don't have much to do with their chicks, but I I feel like a rooster in the hen house sometimes.
interestingly enough, before my account went wackadoodle and signed me into I don't know what, I had a little rooster brooch that I was going to wear, funnily enough, because it was going to go with my hat, my goldenrod colored hat.
Yeah. Well, I asked for one of those for Christmas, and they gave it to me early. So
Okay,
yeah,
right on.
yeah.
Well,
Both my sons are grown men and making money and living their life mostly right.
right on. Yeah, if they're young, they got some mistakes to make. We all do. We all make them, you know.
Well, one's 37 and the other's 21.
Yeah.
So I did driver's training and diapers at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, and Steve Hartman has watched them grow up from little infants to,
Oh,
or young kids to men, and
that's amazing.
you know,
Yeah.
and I've watched his grow from his grandbabies. He's got 3, I think, and 2 nieces whom I love both, and a sister who's um, let's just say she's got some physical things that she's dealing with. So,
Mm.
but anyway, I'll let you run.
All righty. Well,
All right, peace.
yes. Peace, y'all. Thank you for
See ya.
being here, and we'll see you next time.